The mental well-being of children and adults is shockingly poor. Marc Brackett, author of Permission to Feel, knows why, and he knows what we can do. We have a crisis on our hands, and its victims are our children. Marc is a professor in Yale University's Child Study Center and founding director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. In his 25 years as an emotion scientist, he has developed a remarkable, effective plan to improve the lives of children and adults, a blueprint for understanding our emotions and using them wisely so that they can help rather than hinder our success and well-being. The core of his approach is a legacy from his childhood, from an astute uncle who gave him permission to feel. He was the first adult who managed to see Marc, listen to him, and recognize the suffering, the bullying, and the abuse that he'd endure. And that was the beginning of Marc's awareness that what he was going through was temporary. He wasn't alone, he wasn't stuck on a timeline, and he wasn't wrong to feel scared, isolated, and angry. Now, best of all, he could do something about it. All right, ladies, I am super excited for you to listen to today's interview with Marc Brackett. Like I said, the author of Permission to Feel. He has developed a strategy called RULER, R-U-L-E-R. We talk about this in today's episode. And what I really love about Marc, and if you Google him, you're going to hear a whole bunch of interviews. He was on Brene Brown's podcast as well recently, and he's just a really down-to-earth guy, scientist. Typically, when I interview authors of this caliber who have done research, they're very disconnected. They're so attached to the research, but there is no personal story behind it. And what I love about Marc is he's open to telling his own personal story and to be human. And he even shares his own feelings through the pandemic and how he's currently feeling in his own life. And I think it's really, really important for us to see and realize that even people who study this stuff for 25 plus years feel overwhelmed, feel scared, feel angry, feel sad. There is something we can do about our emotional well-being. And for whatever reason, this is also a new area of study. It appears to be a new area of study. We have a long, long way to go in order for us to be able to talk to somebody and say, how are you feeling? And the person replying back with how they are genuinely feeling. For decades, we have been taught not to feel, especially men, vulnerability. There's a whole bunch of stereotypes with women and men and children. And I started my whole career because motherhood kicked my ass. And I remember looking at my son and having no idea how to manage his emotional well-being because I had no idea how to manage mine. This is the foundation and the premise that I've built my life off of. I've built my career off of, my coaching programs, that I truly believe if someone, asked me today, Heather, what is one tool or strategy that every human needs to learn in order to be successful? I would say it is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is not complicated. It is just simply understanding your emotions. And when you can understand anger, anxiety, when you can understand overwhelm, when you can understand your fatigue, when you are just more connected to your emotions and your emotional body, and you know how to manage them, right? You know what they need from you. You know why you're angry. You know why you're yelling, and you know how to find that calm and peace inside of you. This is a personal journey. So I invite you to listen to Marc's interview today. I would love to know what aha moments you had. So please head on over to Instagram. You can find me or you can find Marc Brackett. His information will be in the show notes. And send me a DM. Let me know what you thought about this episode, your biggest takeaway, what you are committed to doing after listening to this. And I also encourage you to go either download his podcast anywhere you can listen to audiobooks. I listen to mine on Audibles. I also get audiobooks from my local library. And there are other Audible or audiobook apps out there as well. And yeah, just buy the book. This is a really, really good conversation that we all need to be having right now, especially where we are in the world. The more confident you gain, or more confidence you gain in your ability to feel, the further you are going to go in life. So dive into that, and I look forward to hearing from you. All right, let's dive in. I have Diane with me, and she's just going to be like a co-host. She's a coach inside of my my coaching program, and I'll give you a background on who's listening.
Sure.
Yeah, she used to be a former teacher. So this
Right. Where are you based?
Intelligence and all that is amazing. Well, we're recording. So Marc, I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
So permission to feel. We all have permission to feel.
Well, some of us do.
So let's dive in and explain that. What does that mean? And, you know, you're listening to an audience of parents who are eager, and maybe this is the first time or first generation where they're starting to unpack and learn all of this stuff.
Well, the title of my book, Permission to Feel, was very deliberate. People like editors and agents and publishers were saying, you should call it emotional intelligence for leaders, for teachers, for parents, whatever, whoever the audience was, which I wanted it to be kind of for everybody. But the point was, when I said, no, permission to feel, right, is what I want to call it. They're like, well, it's kind of unclear. And are you telling people they don't have permission to feel? It sounds a little quote unquote soft. And so I don't imagine some guy at the airport, picking this up to read. And I was like, well, maybe not yet, but it's called permission to feel. And the reason why I feel strongly about that is that I feel like that's the precursor to developing emotional intelligence. That if we don't give ourselves and the people we love, and even the people we don't love so much, or the people we work with, or the people we teach, the permission to feel, then there's no place for skill development. So that gets into like, what does this mean? And, my point in my whole book, obviously, is that there's no such thing as a bad emotion. Emotions are information. They're experiences that we have. They come to us unbidden. And there's no room for judgment of them, because they're just experiences that we have to learn how to use wisely to achieve our goals. So that's my little backstory of, the title.
Well, I love that you're taking a stand for that, because oftentimes what we really need and what the world wants us, or who the world wants us to be, are two different things, which is part of the contrast. So I really, really like that, because even when we're learning about something like emotional intelligence, learning and integrating are two different things. And I would love to just be able to bridge that gap a little bit, especially for parents, because anger in a child or anxiety in a child can be very overwhelming, especially when we don't know how to manage that. So what do you say to parents when they come and they're like, I just don't understand my children's emotions, and what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? How do I control this? All of those questions.
Well, I think the first thing, we do a lot of family workshops, and we have a tremendous amount of content in Ruler, our approach to teaching social and emotional learning. That's in thousands of schools now. But, parents usually come to these workshops thinking like, teach my kid this. I need to learn how to teach my kid this. It reminds me, my other career was as a martial arts instructor. And I used to have parents drop their kids off at my karate class, and they'd say things like, teach my kid discipline. And I would say to the parents, you teach your kid discipline, I'll teach them martial arts. I got them 1 hour a week. Like, I'm not their parent. I want to teach them the blocks and the punches and the kicks. I want a disciplined kid in my class so that they can actually learn. And so I think the same thing applies to emotional intelligence. What happens is that parents think my kid is this way, because of these reasons or whatever it might be, and they need skills, they need strategies, they need to learn how to calm down, they need to learn how to focus and pay attention. And then they leave saying, oh my God, I got so much freaking work to do for myself. And so we have to be role models as parents. There's no way that you can tell your kid to calm down if you're not able to be calm. If all you do is walk around using a lot of negative self-talk and they hear that because it comes out of your mouth, then they're going to start using it. I mean, I'm the case example of that. My parents love me, but they did not have any training in emotional intelligence. So my mother was very anxious, had a lot of kind of unbridled anger, and just she really didn't know what to do with her emotions. So what she did was yelled, screamed, ran after us with pots and pans, and drank alcohol. Mm-hmm. And my father similarly just had he went from 0 to 100 in a millisecond, and then once he got to 100, it was like run for your life. And so when I would come home, and I had a very traumatic childhood, I just basically I learned very early, guess what? Don't talk about your feelings with mommy or daddy, because either A, you're going to trigger them and you're going to get in more trouble for being abused, which is kind of weird. Or it's going to be it's just not going to turn out well. Mm-hmm. And it didn't turn out well for me for many years. And my parents had good intentions. They just didn't have any strategies. So, A is, if the adults are not the role models, there's nothing you can do to support kids, in my opinion.
Ooh, I like that. Diane, I'm curious your perspective being in a school system.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah, I love in your book how you talk about bringing emotional intelligence into the schools, and not that it's something we can bring in and just teach the kids, that the teachers need to have that understanding, and not just the teachers, but the administration. And I love all that. And I'm wondering, the first question that popped into my head was, how do we get teachers on board? Which is kind of funny because, that's usually parents' question is, how do I get my child to do whatever? And I always say, well, we don't get another human being to do anything. So I quickly had to think that question.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, how do we help schools become more intelligent, more emotionally intelligent? Is it through education? I mean, how do we help them implement it?
So I've always found that with educators, there's two ways to reach them. There's through the heart and there's through the science. And so I will ask teachers to do a reflection, for example, on the emotional life of a student in their classroom, and just live vicariously through this child's life for the next 3 minutes, and just wake up as this child in their home with their parents or not their parents or not in a home. And what is it like for them to get ready in the morning? What is it like to commute to school, to be in class 1, 2, 3, lunch? How are they feeling? What are they doing? How are they feeling? Who are they with? How are they feeling, etc.? Sometimes teachers will just have complete meltdowns. So just they realize in some of these very no-nonsense-y kind of charter schools that are no excuses, I should say, that wow, I'm the one responsible for this kid's negative feelings. Or I have no clue. I just don't even know because I've never asked. And there's a whole layer of reasons why I didn't ask, because maybe I don't really want to know because I don't know what to do about it. And then the second is, I'm a scientist. And while a lot of people want my opinions, I tell people right from the beginning, you do not want Marc Brackett's opinion. What you want is you want to know what the research shows about the role of emotions in all aspects of our everyday functioning. And so what I argue is for people to understand how emotions affect 5 areas of our everyday life, which is attention, memory, and learning, decision-making, relationship quality, mental and physical health, and kind of creativity and in the end, our actual performance. And in my book, for example, I go through, I think I have, that chapter might have something like 500 references to scholarly articles just to show people, like, this is, I'm not kidding here. Like, how children and adults feel is inextricably linked to all these 5 areas of functioning. And to deny that is to deny science and to deny empirical evidence. And so I tell you this because the resistors then realize, after they hear me speak around the data, that, well, I don't know if they realize it, but they need to realize it, that if they don't take this work seriously, they are denying children a human right to develop the skills they need to navigate their lives. And I've come to the place in my career where I feel very confident saying that to anybody. And so my feelings are that A, they don't know the science, or B, they're just outright don't care about kids. And so
love that.
That might be strong, but that's what I'm saying.
I love that. I was like, yes, because it is, why is this feel like a new discovery? Humans have been around for a long time. Why is this people are just learning about this now?
I think because historically we valued reason over emotion. Right. Reason is, Ivy League university, certainly not emotion. I can tell you that. Reason is IQ. It's measurable. It predicts certain things that have meaning, like income and quote unquote, educational status and success. And so emotions were kind of idiosyncratic. They're kind of unclear what they are. How do you define them? Where are they in the brain? How do you measure them? When people have strong emotions, they tend to be quote unquote hysterical and not able to reason. And since we valued reason over feeling, then emotion becomes the bad thing, because when you have a lot of it, it derails you from the reasoning stuff. And I think that just grows and grows and grows over history. And then you have this kind of emotionality, that makes people make bad decisions. And you've got this IQ thing that helps people, achieve certain kind of goals in problem solving. And what I think the magic of emotional intelligence is it saying, wait a minute, you can be smart about your emotion system and use your emotions wisely to achieve goals. And that's the beginning of the field.
I love that, because that has definitely gotten me to where I am today. And also my children taught me that skill for sure, and were my first eye openers to that. And I felt very lost in, trying to seek those resources and support, and no one was talking about it. And I kind of wanted to shift gears a little bit, because you share a lot about your own personal story, and it was your uncle, is it Marvin?
Correct.
And I wrote down something that you said. I think maybe it was a prologue of your book. I listened to a lot of books, but I was just really inspired by your story, because I could resonate with definitely not the abuse, but also how he showed up for you. But you just saying you didn't do well in school, and look at what you've been able to accomplish. And yet mentally we have this all or nothing mentality of, my child is going to fail. And I'm like, no, it's their behavior is speaking to you. So just wondering if you could share more about that.
About like Uncle Marvin and my relationship, or what specifically?
Uncle what it was, how he showed up for you, that really cracked you open.
Well, he, as I would say in my book, was the compassionate emotion scientist. And so what I mean by that specifically is that he was the first adult in my life, who really demonstrated unconditional positive regard and love for me. There were no conditions. It wasn't if I behaved well, right, and stuff like that. The second is that when he learned about the abuse that I had endured, he didn't say, well, good luck, learn some strategies, right? Get some grit. He said, well, let's talk about it. And like, how are you feeling? And when I shared what I was feeling, which was the first time I'd ever shared my real deep feelings, and he gave me language for those feelings, because I just felt hatred and disgust and shame. And I didn't have language for that, though. I just felt gross about myself. And so he gave me the language. He created the safe space. He knew how to ask the questions without making me feel uncomfortable or defensive. He also let me know that I was not in this alone, and that we were in this together, and that there was hope. So before there was a term growth mindset, right? He knew that there was a thing that I could actually learn and grow from this, and be even a better person. And so I'm eternally grateful for him, because I think about other people who have had sexual abuse in their early childhoods and had no interventions and no Uncle Marvins. And it doesn't look very pretty. And it breaks my heart that everybody needs an Uncle Marvin. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you were abused. That's my story. Everybody's got their own story. You can just be neglected, or, in with a narcissistic parent, whatever it is, everybody's got something. And as I say in my book, you didn't need to be abused to know that no one else cared about your emotional life but you. And so, yeah, that was Uncle Marvin, and God bless him for being on this earth.
I love that.
I like the way too in the book how when you were talking about when your Uncle Marvin asked you how you were feeling, it's not so much the words he used, but it was his tone that you knew that he really cared. So I talk to parents a lot about that, that it's not so much just the words we're saying, but it's the tone that we're using, our intention.
Yeah. Is it welcoming? Remember, emotions are signals, right? Approach, avoid, approach, avoid. So our facial expression, our body language, our vocal tone, our posture, the words we choose, all send this kind of message consciously and unconsciously to everyone. I'm open. I'm here for you. I'm welcoming you into my world. Or, you know what? I'm not really listening. You're on your own. Or I'm better than you. I'm more powerful than you, etc.
What have you found as do you find that it's easier to teach children these skills or adults? And what has it been a different process?
Well, I think importantly, all of the stuff involved in building our emotional intelligence is developmental. So that's the other important thing, is that it's not like this thing called emotional intelligence exists in a vacuum, right? It's part of our culture. It's part of our family. It's part of our social development, our cognitive development. So you can't disentangle it. You can't teach complicated emotion concepts like shame to a 4-year-old. Like, it doesn't developmentally, it just doesn't. They may experience it, but to understand what it means and its causes and its consequences, like, obviously they're too young to understand that. Mm-hmm. So we have to understand, as parents and as teachers, cognitive development, social development, and emotional development to do a good job in this space. Yeah, I have so many things to say about that, because one of the things that makes the teaching of emotional intelligence different than any other content area is that there is no correctness. So with math and with science, there's a problem we have to solve. 4 + 4 = 8. 6 - 5 = 1. Somebody might argue with that, but for most of us, right, that's going to be, the same response across culture, across race, across everything. But how I manage my feelings, as a white Jewish guy versus a black guy versus a Latino guy versus a Chinese person, Japanese, whatever, right, varies as a function of so many things. My environment, the supports I have, my cultural heritage, my personality, all that. And so the strategies that I might use might not be available for some people, because of my privilege, for example. Um, or they just might not work for other people because they don't fit who they are as people. And so it's not for me as the parent or the teacher to tell a child what to do that's effective. It's for me as the parent or educator to be the emotion scientist who helps the child explore strategies that might work for him or her, and then give that child the opportunity to practice and refine that strategy.
That's interesting because what I just heard you say is like Uncle Marvin was creating the space for you to navigate yourself, like to express, to let out, and being able to do that for other people allows them to kind of figure out what their path is or what their strategies are, the tools that will work and benefit them. Diane, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, I have a question actually, if I can ask.
Sure.
So I've been really interested lately in boundaries. When I talk to teachers and my experiences with teaching and talking to parents, that seems to be at the core of a lot of, the issues. And so can you explain how do our emotions play into our ability to set and hold boundaries consistently?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And I think so. R is recognize, that's ruler, right? U is understand, L is label. We'll call those three skills the skills that help us make meaning out of our experience or to even understand how we're feeling. The E and the R have to do what we do with our feelings. And I think where you're coming into play with your question is in the E and the R, particularly around discernment, because I think discernment is related to having boundaries. So, what I mean by that is that I've got to have discernment as a parent or as a teacher in terms of what I share and don't share with my child. I've got to set boundaries. I've got to understand their development, how they're going to interpret the things that I'm sharing that are appropriate, inappropriate for them to know potentially, that will help them grow into healthy adults. And so to me, that's a lot of discernment. It's a lot of like understanding where your kid is at, where you're at. It's about setting the boundaries of like, I need to be authentic with my child, that I'm feeling pain or I'm sad. But if I tell them too much of the story, yikes, what is that going to do for our relationship or what they think of me or what that, my reputation, the list goes on. So, and then I think regulation is related as well because I think both of my parents didn't know how to set boundaries, for my behavior. They misperceived behavior as feeling. Anyway, they didn't know what I was really feeling. So, in that way, they, just got punished and sent to my room all the time. And no one ever knew how I really felt. But related to boundaries specifically, my mother would say things like this: "I'm having a breakdown. I can't take it anymore." That was her famous line. And so to me, that was not good discernment, right? Like a 5-year-old, 6-year-old should not be hearing his mother say, "I'm having a breakdown," right? Because you broke the boundary of mom child. Now I have to worry about mommy having a breakdown and I'm worrying about my own survival. Like that's not fair.
Right. So it's almost
And so I see these being inextricably linked.
It's almost like we have to know ourselves really well and what's going on within us to be able to hold those boundaries, trust ourselves to have those boundaries and hold them and move through the discomfort of somebody being uncomfortable with those boundaries.
Yeah. And understand our impact. And that takes a lot of metacognitive skill, right? It takes a lot of stepping back and doing role playing with yourself in your head around what might the impact be of this. And we live in a society where we want immediate gratification. We say what's on our mind. We don't think about the implications. And there you go.
I was listening to you, I think it was on Brene Brown's podcast, and you were talking about implementation and that being the biggest gap to, how we follow through with the consistency to get to those points where we feel in alignment, or we're like, I got this, and we have that discernment to do so. So what keeps you going? What keeps you going up this mountain with these resistors, knowing that you are going to be, or that you are a trailblazer in this path?
Well, I appreciate that. And I see myself as like the Willy Loman of emotional intelligence. I've gotten slightly over that. That was my first 15 years. I'm not sure the character I would say I'm portraying right now, but the truth is that, like, I've done enough research. I've visited thousands of schools, thousands. And, I know these skills matter. And I know it's a difference between a life of despair and fear and anxiety and stress and overwhelm for far too many hours of the day. And I don't want kids to have that life. And everyone deserves greater emotional balance, right? Everyone deserves to be the best possible learner they can be, to make the best decisions for themselves and everyone they live with and love, to build and maintain the best relationships, to have good mental health, and to be as creative as they'd like to be and achieve their dreams. And so it's like, for me, my mindset is always kind of whatever it takes. And so I keep doing research to keep proving to people, like, the findings are consistent. 5 years ago today, these skills make a difference in children's lives or adults' lives. And so I think that's what keeps me going, is just realizing that I was blessed. Even though I had abuse in my childhood, it was very painful. Even though I was terribly bullied as a kid, like horrifically bullied, extortion and punched in the face, and major terrible things happen over and over and again. I was so embarrassed and shamed and couldn't tell my father because he just wanted me to be a tough guy. And, I was even questioning my sexuality and my orientation back in my early teen years. And, I was told that was because of my abuse. So there was like layers of kind of like manipulating my own psychology and other people manipulating my psychology. But yet here I am, seemingly healthy, although you can't interview anybody I live with. Seemingly I've done well in life. And it's because, A, I had Uncle Marvin. B, many other things happened. Like, I got involved in the martial arts. I had the privilege of going to college. I got a doctorate in psychology. I've spent 25 years of my life studying emotions, writing curriculum, training, learning, growing, and constantly updating and revising the models because of circumstances like COVID-19 and racial injustice. And so I'm always in learner mode, and I try not to be in knower mode, because I think that's where the danger comes in. And so I don't even know what the question was, but I'm hopeful, and I am, I'm on this. I just feel like every year is getting a little bit better in terms of people's belief in this work. And I've got some big surprises out of our center coming up this year, like major initiatives that are going to, I think, create huge statements to the United States, at least, about the value of emotional intelligence in children. So anyway, I just feel blessed and excited for, this work becoming a reality.
I love it. I wanted to ask you about that, about what you're noticing right now through obviously COVID, but the awareness of social injustice. This is not a new phenomenon that's going on. It's always been there, but just the forefront of feeling that people are having, kind of being in this, not being able to run away.
Well, put simply, it really stinks to be the oppressed. And, there's a lot of feelings obviously associated with it, some of which I can relate to, some of which I can't, because I haven't ever been profiled walking down the street or walking through a store, or had relatives murdered, for the color of their skin. And so, I think sadly it's taken 400 something years for us to like finally, I think, at least in the United States, say like enough is enough. Equity is not an option. And my hope is that people will learn what they need to learn and be uncomfortable for a while, and that people will understand that like there's a group of people in this country who have been treated horrifically for far too long, and like enough is enough. And I think that's going to be hard for people who, don't really understand that or haven't experienced it themselves. But that's the hard, that's what it is. And so I'm hopeful, that these are the times to make real change. I'm also saddened, that, related to COVID in particular, that we are, it's very clear to me that we are a society that does not understand what it takes to preserve a society. And so I lost an aunt this weekend to COVID. She was an 82-year-old woman who was very healthy 2 weeks ago, vibrant, worked out every day, a real, Floridian, flirty, funny lady. And don't know how she got coronavirus, but nevertheless did, and died 8 days later. And, deeply saddened by that, and also deeply angered, because we know, very, very high IQ people are not doing what we know is best to prevent this virus from spreading. Mm-hmm. Wear the freaking mask, keep yourself distant, and, stay clean and wash your hands. It's not that complicated. Social isolation without psychological loneliness, right, is possible, but we're not able to do it for some reason. And I'm convinced it's because of our lack of emotional intelligence training, mm-hmm. and lack of empathy and perspective taking skills. And because smart people, again, are doing stupid things. And so it can't be IQ, because otherwise all smart people, right, would be engaging in best practices, which they're not. So there's got to be another variable, a set of variables, which is people don't like to be controlled. People don't like to be told what to do. People can't deal with the feeling of not being in contact or, with people. And it's to me, COVID in particular is is our strongest example of why we need everybody to have an emotion education.
I agree. Diane?
Yes, very much so. I just thank you, Marc, for your work. I think this is the way forward, and, getting that information out there and into the public school systems is, a dream. And I think it can be reality. And I thank you
I appreciate that.
for your work.
It takes a village. I get a lot of credit because I'm the director of the Center for Emotional Intelligence and a professor, but I have a team of 60 people, all of whom really work hard, and bring in so many talents and skills and perspectives that really make our work better. And so years ago, it was just Uncle Marvin and me running around the streets, with our little posters and our workbooks, and now it's a whole team. And so I feel very, very privileged in that regard, in a positive way, of being surrounded by people who are like-minded and also wanting to make a difference in the world.
And as a teacher in the early childhood field for 30 years, the last 15 anyway, we could see difference in the number of children coming in, who are challenged, but, behaviorally, emotionally. And especially in the last 10 years, in my area anyway, it's just exploded. I think it's everywhere. And so, yeah, your work is so needed. So thank you.
I just try to report on what works best. And I think it goes back to, in the order of development, parents giving themselves the permission to feel all emotions, then giving their kids that permission, recognizing that emotions are just experiences. They provide information. They're not to be judged. They matter for all these key reasons, from learning to relationships, to the fact that we can actually develop these skills and be better at recognizing other people's emotions and our own, understanding where they come from, and label, express, and regulate them. And that, I think, probably the last thing I would say in regard to this is, a lot of people ask me in podcasts like this or in whatever I'm doing, they'll say things like, well, what's the next big thing? And I say, I'm kind of done from creating stuff. I just want people to do the basics. And so everybody's looking for the next thing, right? And there is no next thing. Here I am at 50, spent my entire last 30 years of my life thinking about emotions and emotional intelligence and emotion regulation. I've read everything. I've tried everything. Now I'm cooped up in my home with my partner and my mother-in-law and my 2 puppies. And I'm having breakdowns every other minute. And I'm like, but Marc, you're the director of the Center for Emotional Intelligence. And it's guess what? He was not anticipating this experience and had never had this experience before. It's a new feeling. It's a new context. And so I'm working on it. And I think having that kind of growth mindset around emotional intelligence is so important, because it's life's work. It just is. It doesn't have the same implications as cognitive stuff does. So you go to the grocery store, you pay, you get your bill, it's $80. Let's just say it's $80, and you are lucky enough to have $100 bill. Who pays cash anymore for groceries? But whatever. And you get your $20.
Are you even allowed to do that at most places anywhere?
I don't have ever more than $5 in my wallet. But point being is, whether it be the groceries or a cup of coffee, it's $5, which is too expensive, but that's the way it is these days. You give a 10, you get the $5 back. Okay, clear. That math is very, very clear. And whether I'm tired or hungry or irritable or whatever, I'm pretty much going to know that I get $5 back. Does not work that way with emotional intelligence, because what happens is that when we are activated, right, our brains don't operate the same way. So I'm activated now in a way that I don't have any prior experiences from which to rely on to make meaning out of it. Mm-hmm. So I'm searching, what's my strategy here when my mother-in-law is telling me that she wants to go back to Panama, that she feels like I, make her do things that she doesn't want to do in the house, and she's cleaning more than she ever thought she was going to be cleaning. And I'm like, well, I'm working all day. What do you want me to do? I'm not yelling at you to clean the house. You're just doing it, but you don't want to do it. And you want to be home. And she, it's just blah. And then we have dinner, and she's like, if I could walk back to Panama, I'd walk back to Panama. I'm like, well, all right, Marc, how would the director of the Center for Freaking Emotional Intelligence respond to this? And then there's some nights where I'm just the door's open, good luck.
Get your shoes on. Get your shoes on.
And then there are other nights where we have this long conversation, and I apologize, and I have to go through this. And there's no right or wrong. It's complicated. Yeah. And let's say, I just want to say that we have to, the reason why I say that to you is that it's very liberating. Because, people always say, well, Marc, if you're having trouble, my God, I'm never going to make it. And the truth is, we're all going to have trouble. Yeah. And it's okay, because we're human beings and we're imperfect, and just get back on the saddle and apologize, forgive yourself, forgive others, and try your best and keep going. So anyway, I hope that wasn't too much.
I love that. And I really enjoy, you just put a human filter on yourself. So it gives other people permission to do that as well, because we are so good at, this is like you said at the beginning, there's no bad emotions or bad feelings. It's like, it just is what it is. Recognize it. And when we stop pretending, like labeling our feelings as good or bad and go, what did I do wrong? It's like you were just acting like a human there, but what are you going to do with that? And that's the development of
Well, and
intelligence.
we're taught to run from the negative emotions because they're bad, right? Anxiety is bad because it makes you dumb and it makes you weak. That's somebody made up that story, right? That's not the real story around anxiety. As a matter of fact, I like to hire people who have mild anxiety problems because they really work hard and get things done.
They're motivated.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little anxiety would be nice right now, actually. Like we got shit to do. And so I had somebody who's like, everything's going to be calm. Like, no, we're not going to be calm all the time. Like right now, it's like there's a war going on. It's like, let's get out there and fight.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to move away from judging feelings as good or bad and move towards embracing emotions as information and trying to be as wise as possible about how we use them to achieve our goals.
Amazing. So Permission to Feel, you can get it wherever books are sold, I'm assuming.
That's correct.
Or Audibles. I like to walk and listen. And do you have an app? Do you have like the Mood Meter app?
So we have a Mood Meter app, which is just moodmeterapp.com, which can help you track your feelings. Mm-hmm. You can also just my website, which is Marc with a C, Brackett, BRACKETT.com. Just has everything there, from ways to get the book, to get the app, to learning about articles that I've written and others have written. We're actually having a virtual conference on emotional intelligence in a couple of weeks. It's really cool. Got other people like Angela Duckworth and Decker Keltner, kind of major scientists in this space, joining me. I do a virtual book club that people have loved. It's been fun. I'm going to launch a new one in a couple of weeks as well. So lots of ways for people to stay in touch and keep learning.
Everything virtual. That's the fun
It is
part.
what it is. I'm not even sure I ever want to, I want to exercise, but I'm not sure I want to travel to do presentations anymore.
I know. I'm having the same feeling. I'm sure you travel for that way more than I do, but it's kind of like, oh, you could just pick and choose, and everyone's used to this virtual thing now.
Totally.
Amazing. Well, Marc, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. And Diane, do you have any last words?
Just thank you. This was great to be here and to meet you, and I love your work.
I appreciate that, Diane. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so there you heard it, the amazing Marc Brackett. He can be found anywhere. Google him. He's online. He often has very sustainable online events as well, especially during this pandemic. Go check out his book, Permission to Feel, and all of the other work that he has done. And if you have a platform of any kind, I highly, highly encourage you to integrate his work into this. Emotional intelligence is a game changer, especially for our children. But if we're going to lead our children to find, to feel in control of their big emotions, guess who needs to teach them? That is us. Becoming a role model is the greatest gift we're going to give the next generation, and how you think and how you feel and how you show up in the world, because they are watching us every moment of the day. And if we want to teach somebody something, we need to learn it ourselves first. So that said, if you have been on the fence and interested in joining my coaching programs, whether it's Mastery or Mastery 2.0 Business, I highly, highly encourage you to head on over to my website, heatherchauvin.com/takebackcontrol, and simply just fill out the interest form. So Mastery is an 8-month coaching experience. It is group oriented. And once you fill out the coaching application, I personally read it and respond and will be in touch with your next steps. This is for women who are ready to get out of their own way. They want to dig deeper into their emotional intelligence. They want to feel in control of their time. They want to really take back control of their mindset and also find the strategies to, realign their whole life. So oftentimes when people come to mastery, they're coming because they feel out of control with their time, their energy, their relationships, parenting, and they're trying to solve that big question of how do I find balance in my life. For Mastery 2.0 Business, that's the exact same woman, except she may own a business and she is looking for additional sales and marketing support. So this is about helping you master sales, which is going to allow you to receive more money for your products or services. We have ladies with brick and mortars, all walks of life who attend this program. And marketing is about visibility and really knowing where to focus your energy and attention. So your next logical step is to fill out the application. There's absolutely no obligation. If we do not feel we can be of service to you, I will point you in the right direction. HeatherChauvin.com/take back control is where you can find the interest form. My last name is spelled CHAUVIN.com/take back control. Once you simply fill out the intake form, I will be in touch and we will get you on the phone for an intro call. You are not alone. But remember, magic does not happen or unfold in your life if you are sitting there not taking action. Your next step is to fill out that application, and I look forward to reading